Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ultra Life Today. A little teaser today. I think that we're going to be doing an interview that's going to end up being one of the most listened to podcasts we've ever done. Without any more ado, I'm Josh Bellew.
I'm Adam Payne, and this is going to be exciting. Josh, this is a first for us. We are bringing in somebody with a background in veterinary science, not just dogs and cats, our pet children, but also large animal, and even more importantly, somebody that has a deep background in holistic veterinary medicine.
Yeah, and to let our viewers know, I've lived in Oklahoma all my life. I've only been out of the country about 3 times in my life. I used to own a large business in Edmond, Oklahoma, and I kept hearing people mentioning the name of this gentleman, Dr. Terry Wood, out in Mustang, Oklahoma. And these were people that were at their wits' end because they had tried to go to other veterinarians and they had done their standard of care, and it simply did not help the animal. And so they wound up through word of mouth referrals, Adam, out there in Mustang, Oklahoma. And so, again, without any further ado,
here's Dr. Wood.
We got Dr. Terry Wood on the line. He's a doctor of veterinary medicine specializing in holistic medicine, but can do perfect standard of care. Of course, graduated from Iowa State University in 1981, spent a little time in Wheaton, Illinois, southern Oklahoma, and then well, first of all, welcome to the broadcast.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Wood.
Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure meeting y'all.
Yep.
Yeah, and putting up with our technical challenges.
Yeah, we've had a couple today.
And you're still smiling and laughing. Gosh, we want to know you better for sure.
Absolutely.
So anyway, we love origin stories on this broadcast. We love hearing how someone got from point A to point B in their life. You mentioned to me off camera that you grew up in South Dakota. You grew up on a farm there, so you had that kind of experience. But we would love for you to just kind of, as Adam says, go in the Wayback Machine and tell us where you came from and how you got into what you're doing.
Can I be Mr. Peabody this time?
Sure,
You're
I'll be Sherman.
You're Sherman, okay.
I will. Of course. You got the glasses on,
I do.
All
right, Dr. Wood. So take us back. You graduated. You're doing your. Did you start in large animals or small animals? Where did you pick up your trade after you got out of veterinary school?
I started in small animals and then ended up in large animals, and we did some small animals and then small animals exclusively after that.
So, you had mentioned an event that took place at elementary school that was probably life changing. You want to?
Well, this is what really got you
your attention.
Yeah. Was this one of those? Was this before? Was this kindergarten or was this later? Because I in show and tell, I wanted to be a fireman when I was in kindergarten. What about you, Dr.
You
Wood?
put out fires all the time.
I
Adam.
do. Actually, I am kind of a fireman.
Yeah,
all right. Yeah.
Well, it was. I believe it was about 4th grade,
and
I was out on the schoolyard recess. Like I told you, it's my best subject. And there'd been a dog that had been hit by one of the school buses. And the dog was crying. It was in pain, and everybody was gathered around it, and nobody knew what to do.
Wow.
And it was one of those moments. It was like, I'd really like to know what to do to help this dog, because you just feel completely helpless, and everybody else was helpless. And then, of course, they ushered us all inside. I didn't ever find out what happened, but yeah, that was a big moment. And then, of course, with the farm, and we raised had mama cows and calves, and so we had all kinds of stuff going on with that.
So it was set in your heart, kind of, when you were going through high school. Were you kind of already telling people, I'm going to be a vet? That's what my passion is. That's awesome.
Yep.
That's really cool.
Yep.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention as well, for people that may not understand the world, we've probably got new viewers. Functional medicine, integrative medicine, holistic medicine, the approach can be summed up in this. We don't want to try to put out the fire after it's started, although we can. The desire is to know the cause, the root cause of what's taking place in that human or that animal, and then have a preventive lifestyle approach to it, which is something I know you specialize in. So,
but that's not the. I mean, that always hasn't been the approach. Right?
No, that's why I was going to ask you. Graduating in 1981, did you have anybody at that time that was in your sphere of influence, mentors of yours, that was saying, hey, there's another way to do this? What was that like back
I
then?
mean, even before that, did you know you wanted to do holistic medicine when you were graduating with your getting into your practice?
Oh no, I thought people that did that shouldn't be doing it.
Oh,
So,
really?
So, so, it,
Wow.
so it was like Quack Watch, right? You know,
yeah,
if
I
we'd
was on
had the internet back then, we would
yeah,
have reported them on Quack Watch. Okay.
yeah. No, I was at the other end of the
There's something.
spectrum.
Is there something called Quackwatch?
Oh yes.
Really? Oh, wow. Boy, I'm behind the times.
There's,
I'm probably
yeah,
wide in front on there.
it could be
Yeah.
that he's on there and we're on
We're
there
on there
too,
too.
because there's still a lot of people that have
Yeah.
only a
So
conventional standard of care paradigm.
it's so. I think it's everybody's journey. I think God takes everybody on a journey through life. How did you end up getting into holistic medicine? Did somebody, was it something in graduate school or something that happened along the way? Was it a failure in conventional medicine to actually derive results for your patients that took your attention to, well, there has to be something different? What was it that got you into this into holistic medicine?
Well, it was a real gradual thing
Oh,
because because it's a big step to step out and do that because we all fall back on the standard of care. Okay,
yeah,
you're treating the symptoms, you're doing what you were taught, you're doing what's expected of you, but you're possibly very likely not dealing with the underlying problem. So the courage to step
interesting.
out, it takes a while, and there were several things that happened, but I actually been speaking at a conference on the East Coast one time, and one of my buddies there said, "Hey," he said, "how long did it take you to start doing this?" And I kind of hung my head and I said, whispered, 15 years. He goes, "Look
Oh,
me in the eye and tell me how long." And I said, 15 years, okay? I'm a slow learner. And he said, "No." He said, "Everybody in this room, I promise you, it took them 15 years. I've asked them all."
Oh, wow.
yeah, Dr. Wood.
So was this a conference of other holistic veterinarians?
Yes, yes, it was.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's a perfect segue to my next question. Have there been some pioneers in veterinary medicine in the holistic area that almost are kind of like the icons or the mentors or
Lifting
the
the
or the John
standard.
the Baptists that kind of were the front runners that probably took a lot of heat? Did you have some of those in your life when you started making this gradual shift?
Yeah, I mean, I knew of some. I'm a member of the American Holistic Veterinary Medical Association,
Oh, that's cool.
um, and I've been at several of their conferences. I didn't know a lot of those people personally, but the one mentor I had was a Dr. Brian McLaren from Australia, and that's who I learned photonic therapy from. And he was a terrific mentor, and he
Wow.
really helped me to understand a lot of things.
That makes sense. But what? But there. So you said it was a gradual transition for you to get warm up to the whole idea of holistic medicine. Was there? What resources did you have available that kind of opened the door to this alternative way of thinking? And how? And just give us a sense, if possible, how radical of a departure is it going from a conventional mindset of veterinary medicine to a holistic mindset of veterinary medicine?
It can be very difficult because people, you doubt yourself, and I'm departing from the standard of care. But it started out with something simple like probiotics. I mean, I use antibiotics all the time, and I thought, I'm really failing here. I'm killing good bacteria because I know myself, if I take antibiotics, I'll feel better, and at the end of the course, I'm feeling worse.
Right.
and,
Right.
and I thought, well, I need to do this. So I had a contact and got a real good source of probiotics, and that was one of the things. And I thought, well, I wonder what people are going to say. And I think since I've been doing it 30 plus years, I think I've had one person say, "No, I don't want the probiotics." Everybody else is like, "Hey, that's a great idea."
Wow.
And
Yeah,
yes,
it makes a lot of sense.
Were there any early interventions when you began to make this gradual shift, as you said, hanging your head 15 years as your friend and you were joking out there at that conference? Were there some early interventions that you did where all of a sudden you saw something take place in animals that you had typically been treating with standard of care, where you just basically said, I'm all in now. This is
Uh,
really different. Can you
Yeah,
think of any moments like that?
yeah, I think one of them was treating strokes in pets because it's been a long time ago, but I remember there was a big push on the human side to help people recognize if somebody's having a stroke. Like police officers, it's like, no, he's not responding to my commands. Well, he's having a stroke, sir. So,
Right.
they said, can you smile? Can you raise both hands over your head? Can you make a sentence? Um, and I was seeing pets coming in like that. It's like, oh, I don't think they could do any of that, and I really didn't know what to do. I thought, and through, I remembered a class that I took in pre-vet animal nutrition 201 that talked about um, aortic aneurysms in young turkeys. It was like I think 1955 was the first year turkeys were raised commercially,
Hmm.
and they had a 50% death loss in 6 to 9
Wow.
week old
What?
birds from
50% death
yeah,
loss?
from ruptured aortic aneurysms, and that's an old
What?
person, an old horse disease. It should not have been happening in those birds. One of the vets from Cornell analyzed the birds and the food and found out there was no copper in the diet. And of
Oh,
course, I have a huge interest in minerals, but
Yeah.
this is one of the
We'll get
where
there.
it kind of started because copper is, minerals are the weak link in the chain for all the enzymatic cascades in our body. And there's one where copper is necessary to convert proelastin to elastin, and that's what keeps blood vessels stretchy and strong. And
interesting.
so they supplemented the diet with copper, and the death rate from that went from 50% to zero. And
What?
Amazing. Now, Adam, I don't know about you, but I am really
When
intrigued.
was this, Doc? When was this discovery kind of done?
1955.
Oh wow.
Wow.
I mean, I learned it in Animal Nutrition 201 a couple thousand years ago.
Oh, that's
Wow.
amazing.
What I'm thinking, though, is I'm trying to imagine in my mind, how does one treat a canine that you think is actually having a cardiac event or a stroke? Because I'm like trying to wrap my mind around how do you do that?
Huh.
Yeah, it's kind of like, okay, why did you come here today? Now it's like I welcome them because when I have a couple of different products that I use, but what will happen is that and without trying to poison the person's memory, I'll ask them, have you noticed some little things where the pet seemed off, maybe starting 6 or 8 months ago, kind of looked funny, looked like me on a Friday afternoon, then it kind of snapped out fine. And they'll go, well, yeah, now that you mention that. And, it just was a big enough bleed that and it can cause anything. We've seen them, you name it, we've seen it happen. And so what we'll do is I put them on a copper supplement and tell them if it is a stroke within 7 days, they're going to be doing great. And, we do that literally almost every day in the
Wow.
clinic. And
You, wow.
yeah,
So we're talking about after an ischemic event, giving copper to the animals actually helps them recover and to restore function.
yes, yeah, we need to stop the bleeding.
That's
Right.
mind
If
blowing.
we don't, the episodes get worse and worse. And the brain, I describe it as like it's a fuse panel, and there's a whole bunch of breakers in there that aren't being used. So when they have this event and that one dies, it's gone forever. But the brain, being the amazing organ it is, it will go ahead and reroute to some of those open circuits. So if the
Mm.
pet's having seizures, can't walk, head tilt, circling, aggressive. Um, give them. I ask people because they'll come in going, "Well, I think you need to euthanize my pet," and I go, "Could you give me 7 days?
Wow.
Give me
That's
7 days."
great.
Mm.
Okay, we're going to interrupt here because we're going to go to a quick break, but we'll be right back. You're listening to Dr. Terry Wood from Mustang, Oklahoma. Kind of, in my opinion, because I've heard of him for decades now, kind of iconic in the area of holistic veterinary medicine here in the state of Oklahoma. People come from outside the state to see Dr. Terry Wood. The way you can contact him is 405-376-1320. That's 405-376-1320. Or he has a really cool website. You can learn a lot there. You can even schedule online. It's terrywooddvm.com. That's TerryWood. D is in dog, V is in veterinary, M is in medicine.com. terrywooddvm.com. This is Ultra Life Today. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Our mission is to take nature's most beloved botanicals and enhance them with our liquid protein scaffold technology. This helps it reach your cells faster and better. With exponentially enhanced bioavailability, you'll feel better every day. Ultra Botanica, the feel-good curcumin. Hey, we're back here in the studios with Dr. Terry Wood. I'm Adam Payne.
I'm Josh Bellew.
And it's been fundamentally just a phenomenal interview with Dr. Wood. We've been learning about his background and his passion, going from traditional veterinary medicine and sciences and breaking into holistic medicine. We just learned that how copper can be used in a dog, an animal, or even a turkey. I guess we learned it from turkeys.
We did.
As a way of, if an animal's had a stroke, to help prevent future strokes by, I guess, addressing elasticity
and actually taking them out of that event that's currently harming them, which blew my mind. He says, in the last segment,
me 7 days.
Give me 7 days before we would euthanize this animal that's going through this cardiac event. And I was stunned when you said that just that introduction of copper into that animal could actually many times shift the landscape within 7 days. It just blows my mind.
This reminds me of all the stories that we hear about Ultra Pet or UltraCur for pets. I don't know if you're familiar with our technology, Doc, but we have a curcumin supplement that we developed mainly for humans. It was astonishing the kinds of results that we were getting, and we made a pet product about it's been 4 years ago. And it's been in the back burner.
Product. We made it first 8 years ago and then changed it about.
And we keep on, we get testimonials of people that are like, it's time. Our pet's just been sitting in the corner in the dark, not moving around. It's obvious that they're in pain. The vets have done everything they can with the NSAIDs and the steroid injections, and they're not enjoying life anymore. Maybe it's time.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I want to remind people, this is a preventive approach. Yes, Dr. Wood does interventions, and we're going to probably hear more about those in the broadcast, but he has a preventive approach, so hopefully your animal doesn't have that cardiac event or doesn't move into a really waning health in its senior years.
When I, just going back to what I was saying for just briefly here, Doc, we hear stories all the time from people, a grandma that can't get up and can't, raise their arms above their head and can't lift up their grandchildren, and or grandma that can't walk or wear high heels to church anymore, and they're now able to have mobility again. You know what brings tears to my eyes? It's when I hear about the pet stories. There's something about these precious animals that are relying entirely upon us for their love and, not necessarily all their love and care, but for their care, and they become such an integral part of our family unit when we bring them back from the brink of extinction, essentially. There's something in my heart that just that's touched more than any of the human stories that I hear. And it's just amazing.
It's got to be rewarding. So in your practice, do you specialize in just one or two types of animals? Where do you go in your practice in terms of this potential? Because I don't know much about veterinarians other than feline and canine.
Well, then there's large animal, and then there's exotic, right? Yeah. Yep. Doc?
So what do you do in your practice there?
I mainly do dogs and cats, but with having been a large animal vet, I do the photonic therapy, acupuncture with the light. I will still do that on horses. I had a lady the other day walk her dog outside the clinic. She said, "I saw some horse poop out there." Yep, sure did.
Great.
Came really from a horse.
I gotta ask the question, Doc. Have you heard about our UltraCur technology?
I have not.
Wow. Well, we have some. We're going to give you some stuff to play with.
Yeah.
It's kind of actually exciting that we've seen astonishing results. Our curcumin, we solubilize it to get it soluble in a molecular form, and then we bind it to a protein, so that as the body's digesting the protein, those molecules are absorbed and are bioavailable to the body, and we see results in very short period of time.
So-
70% of people
Yeah.
experience a result in a week, 50% of people within 24 hours, and about 35% of people and animals experience a dramatic benefit within 2 hours. So it's quite amazing.
So I've got to ask this question, and hopefully this doesn't start World War III.
Okay.
Because have you ever been around people, Adam, with pets? And I'm sure you've heard this just ad nauseum, Dr. Wood. And it's like, I feed my pet this. I feed my pet that. This is what you should absolutely feed your pet. They should never get this. They should never get that. People are so confused, and I've seen people just almost get heated about this topic. Can you kind of help us? Can you clear the smoke for us and kind of give us an insight into canines and felines and what they should be eating?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because that's, the old adage, you are what you eat. And if you're, trash in, trash out,
Yeah.
and we can address a lot of problems with diet. And I can preface that with, we've had several of my clients, they didn't take me, so I'm pretty upset with them, but they went to Italy this summer, and they are gluten intolerant here, but in Italy, they ate pizza and pasta every day and did just fine.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, the world according to Monsanto. Don't get me started. There's something very unusual about wheat products that have been treated with glyphosates and stuff. You and I could probably talk for an hour off camera because it sounds like you really
So it's
have
the
insight.
genetically modified wheats that are really causing the issue.
Yeah, fortunately, so many countries around the world, and we'll get right back to Dr. Wood here in this conversation, but so many countries around the world have refused Monsanto's introducing genetically modified seeds in there for that very reason.
Well, it sounds like once it's in, it's affecting everywhere.
Yeah,
because
the food I
bleeds.
ate in Ireland, unbelievable. It was
No
it
issues?
was so different. Yes, so completely different. Yes, it was amazing. I'm
Jealous.
so glad you brought that up, though, because that's such a big deal. So back to this subject of feeding our pets and what's optimum and how do you do that? And is there a way, if you can't afford the creme de la creme foods, is there other healthy foods you can give them that may be more budgetary minded? I know
Sure.
we're covering a lot of ground here.
Yeah. No, I tell people no grains, no corn, wheat, or soy again, because it's GMO and it's not really corn, wheat, or soy anymore. And it's Roundup ready, so it's full of glyphosate.
Yeah.
I've been to the museum at Mesa Verde a couple of times, and they found a complete pottery jar full of corn. It's like, hey, that's corn.
That's what you really
That's
call
really what corn
heirloom.
is.
That's what you really call heirloom seeds, right? That's
Yeah.
That's
fantastic.
interesting.
So no
You
grain.
guys are kind of scaring me here into what are we really eating?
Yeah, it's a toughie, Adam. It's a toughie. We don't want to go down that dark road today. We'll leave hanging our heads and weeping. So, anyway, I know he's got some answers because he's gonna share some of these food tips for us with our pets.
Sure. Yeah. And then no dairy, because a lot of pets are allergic to dairy. Again, all the chemicals. And then the two proteins, and I don't have anything against chicken or salmon, but those seem to be the two that we have the most trouble with. It's kind of like I'll tell people, it's like a chicken breast should be this big around,
Yeah.
or this big around.
Exactly.
And it wasn't because he went to the gym 3 days a week.
That's exactly right.
It's bioengineered,
Yep.
right?
So, but in the chicken world, can you get free-range chicken for animals, and can you get wild-caught salmon, and is that okay? Or where do you like to go?
Well, I just tell people to avoid the salmon. I would be
Okay.
more amenable to trying I would be more amenable to trying the wild caught, because the farmed I would absolutely stay away
Yeah.
from.
100%.
And then, of course, I will tell people no commercial treats at all, because what happens is that by federal law, if you put an ingredient in a food or a treat, you got to put it on the label. So the workaround is you don't want a treat that tastes bad, so you have your supplier put it in at their facility. It comes to you with it in there, but you didn't put it in, so it's not on the label.
Oh my goodness.
So I'll have
They can do that?
Oh my goodness. Boy, you have just like peeled my eyes back.
Yeah.
Wow.
Some people will say, because we'll see a pet having seizures, we change the food and we stop it the vast majority of the time. Not every-
Incredible.
So
Incredible.
are there any brands that you say this is a good brand or that's not a good or
Yeah.
let's
Is it wet
talk about
food?
the one.
Is it dry food?
Yeah,
What do we
which
do?
brands are
I-
more or less clean?
I guess my favorite would be Blue Buffalo because they even do PCR testing on their finished
Okay.
product before they
Nice.
release it to check for foreign proteins. Because the very first dog I did, and I heard this guy lecture a number of years ago, and he said, "Look, all the dogs you're seeing, you've got on phenobarb and Keppra and potassium bromide for epilepsy." He said, "I promise you, it's a food allergy." Well, I thought he was full of beans,
Mm-hmm.
but I had a dog referred to me from Chickasha having seizures every day, really bad skin, terrible infections, on all kinds of anti-seizure drugs, antibiotics, steroids, getting worse. And they said, well, she said, my friend said you could help. And it's like, I'm going to kill her. Why did she do that?
Oh, wow.
But I thought, well, I had nothing to lose. So at that time, we didn't have the special diet. So he had him go on green beans and potatoes for 6 weeks. The very next day, the seizure stopped and his skin cleared up. And I was like, holy
Wow.
cow, I need to go read my notes on that again.
That's awesome. That is
But
so amazing.
and another thing I want to bring up about the grain free is that there have been the mainline companies were really against that because most of the major brands rely on grains because they're cheaper than animal products.
Sure.
And there was a big deal about the taurine deficiency causing dilated cardiomyopathy or DCM in dogs. And there was actually an incident in 1986. It was when Hills had their CD, and they said it was good. It was their urinary diet. They said it was good for all cats at all times. Well, it turns out they were following the AAFCO recommendations for taurine, but it wasn't enough because in cats, taurine is an essential amino acid. They cannot manufacture it from other amino acids, and
Interesting.
the levels were not enough to be cardioprotective. So once they found that out, they added levels, and now virtually everybody does it in their cat diets. But in dogs, they can manufacture taurine from other amino acids. And so there's been a lot of stuff written, but the FDA, love them or hate them, they have actually said, look, don't stop feeding your pets the grain-free foods. We don't have any proof yet. And that's been several years ago, and I've not seen any actual proof because I've been recommending grain-free diets for probably 30, 35 years, and I don't see a spike in DCM at all. So it's kind of frustrating because people say, well, you want to kill my dog. No, I really don't. I want your dog to be happy and healthy.
Yeah.
Wow. With 3 minutes left in this segment, maybe you can solve a mystery for me. I remember observing when we had 4 cats at our house many years back, now we only have 1 left, that it would be like a feeding frenzy when we were giving them inexpensive food, to the point that I made a joke to my wife one day and I said, I think they're putting something in that food that is literally making these animals want to just frequently eat more and more and more. So I went out and bought the really expensive food, everything that was grain-free and stuff at the time, with meats, and I did the best I could. And I noticed that they were eating less food, staying more satisfied. Am I like dreaming, or is that a possibility? They were more satisfied. They just weren't just eating all the time. It was crazy.
Yeah, no, I think you're on. I think the human equivalent is that, the more sugars and carbs you eat, the more you want.
Right,
And of course,
right.
it eats cancer and it does all kinds of stuff that's not good for you. But yeah, they're going to crave stuff like that. And to get them switched over to a good food, that's exactly what we would see. And the reason food is so important, it's where 70% of the immune system is. So, if we're given something the pet's allergic to or it's going to react to, you're going to see some effects, and most of them are not good.
I get that. Yeah, it's what we put in is so important to our own bodies, and there are actually some things that aren't good for our pets, like our cats and our dogs. That some people think, oh, I'm just going to feed these foods that I like and give them to the animal. That can be bad. Like I know grapes are not good for dogs, right? For some reason, they can be really toxic for animals, and there are all these kind of well-known kinds of vectors that can be really bad.
So before we hit another break here, you've been listening to Adam Payne, CEO of Ultra Botanica, lead inventor on our technology, and then you've been listening to Dr. Terry Wood, again, kind of a pioneer in the Oklahoma holistic vet space, dating way back into, I think 1986 may have been when started his practice out in Mustang, Oklahoma. You can get in contact with Dr. Terry Wood through his office number at 405-376-1320. That's 405-376-1320. Or you can get on his very cool website where there's great information, learn a lot about him and his practice there at terrywooddvm.com. That's TERRYWOOD, D as in dog, V as in veterinary, M as in medicine.com. This is Ultra Life Today. I'm Josh Bellew. We're going to be coming back in a little bit, right?
I'm Adam Payne. Yep. And we'll just, no, we're going to be, this is at the half hour, Josh. Come back next week when we'll be continuing this awesome interview with Dr. Terry Wood.
Ultra Life Today.